Blackthorn was the kind of town that looked quiet from a distance but carried the feeling that something inside it had never truly settled. The roads curved through dark trees that seemed older than the houses, and the wind always sounded like it was whispering secrets through the branches. When Lena Vale returned after 11 years away, the town felt exactly the way she remembered, and yet strangely different, as if it had been waiting for her. The house on Briar Lane stood where it always had, weathered and tired, its porch sagging slightly toward the ground like a long sigh. It had belonged to her mother, and after her mother's death, it now belonged to Lena. Standing there with a suitcase in hand, she tried to convince herself that this was just another house in another small town. But the moment she stepped inside, something about the silence felt heavy. Soon after her arrival, Lena was joined by Noah Mercer, the only friend from her childhood she still trusted. Noah had grown taller and quieter over the years, but the calm steadiness in his voice hadn't changed. With him came Priya Sethi, a journalist who knew more about Blackthorn's hidden stories than most people in town were comfortable admitting. It was Priya who mentioned the old legend, the one every local child had heard at least once but no adult ever spoke about directly. They called it the legend of the third knock. According to the story, if someone knocked on your door 3 times after midnight, you were never supposed to answer. The first knock meant something had found the house. The second meant it had found the person. And the third meant the door had already opened, whether you wanted it to or not. Lena tried to laugh it off. Legends like that were meant to scare children, not grown adults. But that night, as the house creaked and settled into darkness, she couldn't ignore the uneasy feeling growing in her chest. Something about the story seemed strangely familiar, as if she had heard it before and forgotten it. She told herself the sound she was listening for would never come. Yet just after midnight, in the quiet of the old house, the first knock echoed through the hallway. The knock was soft, almost polite, the kind of sound that made you question whether you had actually heard it at all. Lena froze where she stood, her heartbeat suddenly loud in the silence. Noah looked toward the door, his expression tightening in a way that told her he had heard it too. For a moment neither of them moved. The house seemed to hold its breath along with them. Then the second knock came, slower than the first, deliberate and patient. It didn't sound like someone trying to get attention. It sounded like someone confirming something. Noah stepped toward the door but stopped himself before touching the handle. Priya's warning echoed in Lena's mind, the strange seriousness in her voice when she explained the legend. They waited in silence, expecting the third knock to follow immediately, but it didn't. Minutes passed. Finally Noah checked the window beside the door. Outside, the porch was empty. The road beyond it lay silent beneath the moonlight. There were no footsteps, no passing car, no sign that anyone had been there at all. The next morning Priya returned with a stack of old newspaper clippings and town records. One by one she showed them the stories hidden in the margins of Blackthorn's history. A missing teacher. A man found wandering his garden unable to remember his own name. A woman who claimed her dead husband had knocked on the door late at night. None of the articles mentioned the legend directly, but the pattern was impossible to ignore. Every incident had happened after someone reported hearing 3 knocks. And every one of them had taken place near Briar Lane. For Lena, the discovery brought back fragments of memories she didn't fully understand. Nights when she had been woken by sounds in the hallway. Her mother locking doors and windows again and again. A strange feeling that the house itself had been listening. She had always believed those memories were dreams. Now she wasn't so sure. The answers, Priya believed, were hidden in the town's old archives beneath the library. The building itself looked ordinary enough from the outside, but the basement held records stretching back more than a century. Dusty journals, handwritten letters, and faded church documents filled the shelves like forgotten pieces of a puzzle no one had finished solving. It was there that they found the name connected to everything, Elias Thorne. Thorne had been Blackthorn's first minister, but the stories about him were unsettling. Some described him as a protector who believed the town had been built beside something ancient. Others painted him as a man obsessed with dark rituals and dangerous ideas. His writings suggested he believed grief itself could become a doorway, something capable of attracting a presence that fed on human longing. According to Thorne, the knocks were not random. They appeared when sorrow and memory became strong enough to call something back. Among the journals they found a map marking the houses built from the remains of the old chapel that had burned down more than 100 years earlier. One of those houses was Lena's. Another note, written years later in different handwriting, mentioned a failed attempt to seal something beneath the Vale house. When Lena read those words, a cold realization settled over her. Her mother hadn't simply lived in that house by coincidence. She had stayed there for a reason. Inside a small wooden box hidden with the journals, they discovered 3 iron nails and a tarnished bell. The objects seemed ordinary at first, yet the journals described them as tools meant to hold something in place. Something that could not be destroyed, only contained. Lena stared at the photograph tucked beside them and noticed something chilling. The picture showed her and her mother standing on the Briar Lane porch years ago. Behind them, faint but unmistakable, was the reflection of a tall figure in the door's glass. No one remembered that person being there that evening. With rain falling steadily across the town, Lena returned to the house with Noah and Priya determined to uncover the truth. The clues from the journals pointed toward the basement, to a hidden room that had existed long before the house itself had been built. When they finally found the concealed staircase behind the pantry wall, the air that rose from below felt cold and stale, carrying the scent of damp stone and old smoke. The chamber beneath the house looked nothing like a normal basement. The walls were carved from dark stone, marked with symbols that matched those drawn in Thorne's journals. In the center of the room lay a circular wooden hatch sealed with iron bolts. It was immediately clear that someone had tried very hard to keep whatever was beneath it from getting out. As Lena touched the wood, a flood of forgotten memories rushed back. She saw herself as a child standing at the top of those same stairs while her mother hammered iron nails into the hatch with desperate determination. The realization struck her all at once. Her mother had known about the legend. She had known the house sat above something dangerous. And she had tried to seal it away before Lena could become part of it. As the memory faded, Lena noticed fresh writing appearing slowly on the wall, letters forming as though traced by invisible fingers. The message was simple and chilling. She opened the first door for me. You will open the last. Before anyone could speak, the sound of a knock echoed from somewhere above them. The first knock came from the front door upstairs, traveling down through the house like a distant echo. The second came from beneath the sealed hatch itself, vibrating through the stone floor. Then, from the darkness below the wood, a voice spoke. It called Lena's name gently, using the same tone her mother had always used when waking her from a nightmare. For a moment Lena felt her heart break with hope. If the voice was real, if somehow her mother had survived beneath the house all these years. But Priya quickly found the passage in Thorne's journal that explained the truth. Whatever existed beneath the house did not break into homes by force. It entered through memory and longing. It took the voices of the people you missed most and used them to invite you closer. It knew exactly what to say because it fed on grief itself. As they struggled to understand what was happening, another sound came from the basement stairs. Slowly, step by step, a figure appeared at the top. It wore the face of Lena's mother perfectly, down to the smallest detail. The expression was gentle, almost loving. Yet something about the way it moved felt wrong, like an imitation practiced from observation rather than real emotion. For a moment the room fell completely silent. The thing on the stairs smiled and spoke again, this time with unsettling familiarity. It called Lena by a nickname only her father had ever used. The realization shattered whatever illusion remained. The creature did not truly know the people it copied. It only understood fragments of memory. That small mistake gave Lena the strength she needed to act. While Priya rang the bell to break the creature's focus and Noah drove one of the iron nails into the wood near the hatch, Lena understood what had to be done. The final nail was meant to close the doorway completely. But to do that, someone had to face the third knock without answering it. The creature moved toward her, its shape shifting between familiar faces and shadowy forms as it tried to draw her closer. It whispered accusations and apologies in voices she loved, each one carefully chosen to weaken her resolve. For a moment Lena almost gave in. Then she remembered the reason her mother had stayed in that house all those years. Not because she was afraid, but because she was protecting someone else. With that thought in mind, Lena raised the nail and drove it into the final slot sealing the hatch. The moment it struck, a burst of light exploded from the cracks in the wood. The figure on the stairs twisted and flickered like a reflection breaking apart. One by one the stolen faces vanished until nothing remained but darkness collapsing inward. The sound that followed was not a scream. It was 3 knocks, fading away into silence. When morning finally arrived, Blackthorn looked exactly the same as it always had. The streets were quiet. The tree swayed gently in the wind. The house on Briar Lane stood unchanged against the pale sky. Yet Lena knew something fundamental had shifted. The presence beneath the house was gone, sealed away once and for all. In the weeks that followed, life slowly returned to normal. Noah helped repair the damaged rooms while Priya recorded everything they had discovered, determined to preserve the truth even if the town preferred to forget it again. Lena chose to stay in Blackthorn, not out of fear but because the house no longer felt like a trap. For the first time, it felt like a home. One afternoon she found a letter her mother had hidden years earlier. In it, Mara Vale explained that some doors could only be closed by someone who understood what they were refusing. Love, she wrote, could be powerful enough to protect a place if it was stronger than the longing to bring the past back. From then on, whenever storms rolled across Briar Lane late at night, Lena sometimes paused before going to bed and listened to the quiet halls of the house. She did not listen out of fear anymore. She listened out of respect for the lesson the legend had taught her, because some knocks are not meant to be answered. And sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is simply refuse to open the door.